So, okay, so what you were just telling me was you felt your symptoms, and you were telling me it felt like just a fever come across your whole body.
A fever come across my whole body, serious body aches, headaches running, rampant, consistently pounding in my head, and coughing, constant coughing.
You were with the Floyd family in Minneapolis. You had your news conference in Mesa on Wednesday. Has everyone been notified?
Yes, I have notified everyone that was at the news conference in La Mesa on Wednesday. Have not notified folks in Minneapolis, the Floyd family. I was with the brother of George Floyd. That was it, not the whole family. And so the brother was more surrounded by the other activists from New York. So therefore, I wasn't close to him at all. I wasn't even within 12 feet of him. When we went to the memorial site, I was way behind everyone, trailing everyone else who was huddling around him closer to him, and mostly wearing my mask. I was wearing a double mask, actually, when I went to the memorial site. There was one bandana that said, "We can't breathe." And then there was another mask behind that. So I was wearing two masks. And that was really because I was in the middle of Minneapolis, and I had felt that I was concerned based upon the protests that I was seeing that nobody was wearing masks really. Not a lot of people were social distancing. And my understanding is the mask could help me stay away from the virus. So I was trying to stay as guarded as I could. The one time I pulled it down was the only time I pulled it down in Minneapolis was to speak, and at most lengths, at most times it was at length that I spoke, whether it was with people or to the press, and it was at over 6 feet social distancing plan. I was trying my best to social distance everywhere I could in Minneapolis, but it was extremely difficult.
Yeah, and I know we've spoken about this in the newsroom. We're paying close attention to COVID-19 numbers, not just here in San Diego, but nationwide, as these demonstrations gear up. Do you fear that because people are gathering, it could increase these numbers? Or would you say, you know what, these people would rather get their message out. They would rather take that risk than not be out at all?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a very unusual time in this country and in this world. The things that we're experiencing, we've never experienced before. Whether it's police brutality in the context of George Floyd or it's COVID-19, the two pandemics are showing us a new face of the world and the times that we are living in. And I am, on one side, greatly concerned for all of the protesters. I greatly admire them across our country and across our world for standing up for George Floyd. On the other side, I hope people will take away from my experience that social distancing is still important, wearing masks, bringing your hand sanitizer to the march, constant, water, drinking water consistently is important, and really just trying our best to do the best we can. However, let us be clear, George Floyd had COVID-19 himself, and Black people have suffered from two pandemics in this country, and that's COVID-19 and racism/police brutality. So I'm not surprised that people just do not care at this point. They want justice, and they're standing up, and they're willing to risk their own health to do it. We've had a lot of organized marches and standing up for justice over the last several years, 400 years of protesting and going through slavery and all the bad experiences that we've had as Black people in particular, but we've never protested in a pandemic. This is a different moment. People are protesting by the hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands in the middle of a pandemic. And certainly this shows that this is a turning point in America. But I hope people try to stay as safe as possible because I don't want anybody to get COVID-19. I don't want anybody to die from this disease. It's still real. It's still running rampant. And I hope people understand the safety precautions that they must take.
Do you have any regrets? You've been on the go, Minneapolis, here in San Diego. Who knows where you got COVID-19? Looking back, would you have done anything differently?
Absolutely not. I started at the beginning of the pandemic by serving the most vulnerable, our organization, the People's Alliance for Justice. Excuse me. Let me get some water.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I got to go back to that question. So I wouldn't take anything back from this whole experience. I started at the beginning of the pandemic with my organization, the People's Alliance for Justice, serving the most vulnerable, making sure that everyone, whether it was our seniors who were homebound, or whether it was thousands of people across San Diego County who were in need of food, we stepped out on faith and delivered for the most vulnerable, and did that during the whole what we have seen as the period of the pandemic. We served over 1,000 homebound seniors, giving them home essentials as well as food. That's separately from that, we served over 2,000 people in the county through our food distributions, making sure that the most vulnerable people have food in their house. We started a legal aid task force for vulnerable citizens, Asian Americans, who are affected by discriminatory practices, in which some cases we actually have taken up, as well as to assist those who would be evicted during the pandemic. I mean, when you look at every length of what we've accomplished, I wouldn't take anything back. And now, here toward the end of this period of the pandemic, to fly to Minneapolis, to stand with this family, to make a contribution toward their effort, to organize with the local community there. I wouldn't take anything back from this experience. God didn't put me in position for me to be afraid. He put me in position, obviously, for me to be wise, but my calling is to be a voice for the voiceless. And that means even in the middle of a pandemic, we are first responders. Government officials, public health officials can't do it all. Our elected officials can't do it all. That's why we are all a part of this effort. We're going to get the disease. It's going to go around. We've got to do the best we can to stay as healthy as we can. And let's just consistently try to, keep ourselves aware of this disease. But we can't let, since I said since the beginning, we can't let social distancing stop us from service. We've got to understand that, the disease is not going anywhere, and service can't either. Both of them need us, and we need to be there for all of the people that are most vulnerable.
So moving forward, what's your role in this? How long are you supposed to self-quarantine, and how do you still get your message out while you're doing that?
Well, I've spoken with public health officials. I've spoken with everyone, like I said, that I've been in personal contact with here in San Diego since I got back. And I will go into a 10 to 14 day quarantine. We've been notified by public health officials that as long as I quarantine for the next 10 days, if I don't see any symptoms arise, if I don't see a fever within the next 72 hours, to notify them of that as well. Really, it will be a 10-day assessment. If we do well, next Friday, I'll be able to return to the public with the people. However, my job will shift from this moment on. I will take even harder precautions. You've been to a lot of my news conferences, Shannon, during the pandemic, and you have seen me during the pandemic, and we were very strict. We ran a very strict operation. Well, we will get stricter. We will have, for every food distribution we do, for every volunteer we have involved, we will have a thermometer checking people, a head thermometer. We've been donated we've been given some thermometers to utilize. We will utilize many more hand sanitizers and N95 masks. and we will continue to pursue this as an educational opportunity. I will hold a briefing every day consistently as I have to educate our protesters. I want people to continue to protest, but I want them to be wise and smart as this moment collides, COVID-19 and George Floyd. And I just want everyone to use the safe precautions. And so I will be actually meeting with a young group of organizers in San Diego. Many of them have been organizing the marches. They've been reaching out to me as sort of an expert or long-standing leader in this community, wanting to get my thoughts on how to better organize these protests. And this will be one of the things that we're going to be teaching through via Zoom meetings, town halls, discussions. But I will be just as active online as I am in person. And I stand with the people. I want the people to know that I stand with you. I'm sorry that I can't be out there marching with you as I would want to. I marched a lot in Minneapolis and wanted to march in San Diego. When I return, there will be a march, because there's going to be a consistent march needed and consistent efforts toward reform as we look forward. But in this moment, I will use this as an educational opportunity to communicate with the community about how important this disease is and how important it is to be aware of it and to use all caution as possible when going out. We can social distance and march. We can use hand sanitizer. We can wear our mask. And we need to hold people accountable if they're showing up and they're not properly conducting themselves during these marches to protect not just their own safety, but other people around them. This is something we're all learning, and I don't want people to shame people if they get the disease or if they're not doing things properly. If their mask is down, just tell them, hey, just put your mask up, but don't shame people. And I'm highly encouraging people. We're all still learning about this disease, and I don't want anybody to shame me because I got the disease. I mean, it's something we're all learning and we're all navigating it. And I hope people take this as an educational opportunity, not as an opportunity to take shots at our protest.
Do you have any inclination where you got it from?
I don't have any idea. I've been traveling. I've been on planes. I was in Minneapolis. I've been in San Diego. I have no idea where I got it from. However, I will say that when I was in Minneapolis, just like in San Diego, the protests around this country, not a lot of people are wearing masks, and a lot of people are not social distancing. Right. And so it puts the public health of many at risk. And we see a lot of elders out there in those marches. And I'm praying to God that we do not see a surge in cases, but most likely we will. Because
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say it must be awkward, or it must be surreal for you to have been told you have COVID-19.
It was. I mean, as a first responder, on one side, it wasn't, because I've been responding to this crisis since the beginning. And I expected that I was putting myself at risk by doing it. And all that comes with it. However, on the other side, when they told me that I officially did, of course, I was worried. But I put my faith in God, and I try to put myself under a strict diet. I'm drinking spring water with key limes. I'm also utilizing cayenne pepper, bell peppers. These are very important resources to clear the lungs. The best thing that people can understand in this moment is that you've got to get ahead of whatever you think could happen. And where this virus goes, from what our understanding is it hits the lungs. And so my encouragement to people is utilize the things every day that clear inflammation out of the lungs. You want to attack immediately and early. Start with your lungs, utilizing the heat. So bell peppers, utilizing other things that would help you with that. Eating very strategically, almost going on a fast, which is what I will be doing. I'll be eating things such as dandelion lettuce. Romaine lettuce with avocado oil and a little bit of dabbles of sea salt. Because the best thing you can do during this moment is to keep inflammation down from the lungs. So I have the best of a lot of people around me helping me through this. I'm not walking through it alone, but I think that people need to know that they should take every precaution necessary, march, protest, but keep the public health and the safety at the forefront.
Okay. Well, I'll start to wrap this up so I don't take all of the energy that you have, but how are you feeling today? How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty good right now. I have a little cough here or there when I'm talking a lot. It kind of comes on a little bit, but it's good because it's bringing up inflammation at the same account. But on everything else, my temperature feels good. My body feels good. I don't have any headaches. I haven't taken Tylenol, I believe, in the last nearly 48 hours. And so we're seeing hopefully what could be progress. However, what I've heard is other stories about turns that are taken after 72 hours. And I hope that that's not my case. I hope that I can recover very strongly, and we're praying and we're in good faith that that's the case. But I'm feeling generally pretty well.
Okay, Shane. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out, and I hope you heal well.
I did want to share one more thing with you.
Please do. Yeah.
So I live with roommates. I live in a house with two other folks, and I asked the county because, I didn't want to go home to those other folks that I live with, and I didn't want to infect them. If I could be placed in if they had any place for people who are living in compacted households. Remember, I was pushing for this addressing of compacted households, people who live in households where there's more than 2-3 people there, so they don't infect their household. And the county placed me in a beautiful apartment downtown San Diego. It's almost like a condo with a balcony and a huge apartment condo, refrigerator, stove, completely free. And so what I highly encourage people to do is they have tons of these spaces across the county. Go call 211. Obviously get your test. If you test positive and you do not have a place to stay on your own, not everybody has a basement to live in. And when you're talking about living in your own space, you're talking about being able to have access to a stove and all the things that you still need.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very unusual for people to have access to that, even in a basement setting. And so I would highly encourage people to call 211, call the county if you're in need of a space to quarantine for 10 to 14 days. If you don't have a place in your house, so you don't want to infect other people, immediately take that stance. I took that stance immediately because I didn't want to infect the other people I live with. And so I would highly encourage people to do that.
Wow. That's great. That's great to know. Well, thank you so much, Shane. I'm going to get this turned around and get that story out at 5. And we have each other's contact info if there's anything we need to follow up on.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
All right. You take care. Okay, Shane. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye. Okay, let's see. End meeting for all. Let's see. End it.